Welcome back everybody to another video where we discuss a video game and pray that it brings back the good old days. During the September developers update, they did release some range combat. It wasn't what I hoped it would be. I was hoping they were going to completely reveal all of the ranger archetypes and show us all the abilities and make this big showcase of it. But no, they did not. They did release other information about ranged combat in general, and that's what I want to go through today. Just kind of give my thoughts on what they showed, talk about any implications it could have for the game. As with all my videos, I always enjoy your feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the ranged combat in the comments below. So let's get started. Now, as I mentioned in my last video, the graphics in this game are looking amazing. This is exactly what I would expect out of a modern MMO with the tools that are available nowadays. It truly looks like a world you can immerse yourself in and invest in your character. Now, Steven starts off kiting around some mobs by rolling around like it's a Dark Souls game. This looks to be a basic evasion move and not a learned ability. I don't see any sort of stamina bar or charges to the rolls anywhere. That doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't exist, it's just that I don't see it here. He could definitely have been using some sort of cheat or something that won't be there on live game. Now, if that's not true, there definitely needs to be some sort of limit to this, as being able to dodge at whim would make PvP incredibly frustrating for melee classes, and will make a lot of mechanics in PvE very simple. You just dodge roll out of everything. Most classes, it seems, will have some form of gap closer or crowd control that will need to be used correctly in order to lock down ranged characters, but that won't be much use if they can just roll away like Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, I have been going back and forth on the idea of whatever additional combat abilities you get being tied to your weapon. So if you're wielding certain melee weapons, let's say a sword and a shield or a great axe, then you can use those weapons to actively block, and it'll save you from the damage of most attacks. Maybe you can only do a little sidestep though, because you have these big unwieldy weapons, you're probably in heavy armor. If on the other hand you have dual daggers or a bow, then you get a larger dodge roll, like what we see Steven doing, but your blocking is much less effective. Now, this would give more weight to the decision of what weapon you want to use, what you want your playstyle to be like, and would physically make sense, as I believe you would have a hell of a time blocking a hit from a giant scorpion with a little bow. Now, Steven does use both a longbow and a short bow, which operate differently, but the change is basic, so I'll cover it quickly. The longbow allows you to either tap to attack very quickly, or you can hold the button to charge up your attack. As of right now, charging attacks increase your damage, and they're looking into what additional effects they can add depending on the gear and class that you're using. Now, he is able to run and jump while shooting, though he looks to slow down a bit while he's pulling the bowstring back. Now, the short bow, on the other hand, sacrifices some damage for mobility. With the short bow, you're no longer able to charge your attacks, and they do less damage. That being said, you fire much quicker, and you move faster. So, as the player, you get to decide what you would rather have. I really enjoy that the two bows feel and operate differently, and I hope this carries over to other weapons in some form, so that a great axe feels different from a great sword, or so that a sword and shield feels different than an axe and a shield. Another thing that I do not see, which we believe to be in the game up until now, is a minimum distance to use the bow. Granted, the live stream where the developers discussed the minimum distance is from 2017, so it's possible that things have changed. I would be very surprised if it was meant to be in the game here and they just forgot to mention it. I personally was not in love with the idea of a minimum distance making you unable to use your bow or the abilities. I think if they are fixed on having it in the game, then perhaps a minimum distance is only a requirement for longbows, or perhaps your damage is lower if the enemy is within a certain distance. The minimum distance requirement seems like a headache that nobody really wants to deal with, and it seems hard to implement correctly. Now, on to the first ability. What they showed us here is Quick Shot. It's the one on the 2 key. It has 3 charges, and each consecutive use of it does increased damage. While I like that they're adding additional effects to the abilities to try and make them more interesting, I'm stuck wondering in what scenario a player would forego just using all of these stacks at one time. If it's always better and more efficient to spam all of your Quick Shot charges to get the additional damage, then that makes the choice for the player right there. And it begs the question, what is the point of the charges? MMO players are always looking to increase their damage, either to meet DPS checks, to make the cut on their raid team, or just to perform better in PvP. So if spamming all 3 stacks is always the most efficient way to use the ability, then it might as well just be one button press that shoots 3 times. I bring this up because I don't want the design of these classes to give us the illusion of choice whenever there's a clear, optimal way to play the class, because the players will always gravitate towards that, removing the choice. I think something like this is much better suited to be combined with other abilities. For example, you could have this ability off the global cooldown, meaning you would weave it between your other abilities. Something else in your kit, such as a damage over time ability, or maybe each time you critically strike, it would give you another charge of quick shot. This would create interaction between your different abilities. This could even make interactions between other classes more interesting. During certain buff windows, such as a critical strike buff from a friendly bard, you'd be able to just spam out quick shots like a machine gun due to all the procs you're getting. Maybe your quick shot could refresh on ticks of bleed damage, so partnering with a rogue that also makes your target bleed could give you double the procs. I think something like this would be way more interesting than just a spammable filler button, because at that point it's not much different than your normal auto attack, which you'll already be spamming in between abilities. The second ability on the 1 key is Snipe. Now I like this ability a lot. It does more damage the longer you charge it. Now I think this ability is going to be an easy one to add augments to with your secondary class. The longer you hold it, it could have other effects such as increase any CC durations, taking longer to fire could increase your critical hit damage or give additional bleed damage. It could do this under the guise that your character took the time to pinpoint a weak spot on the enemy. If the enemy's close enough, it could even cause a knockback and help you keep the distance between you. Overall, it's a nice ability that's easy to customize and augment. 8 out of 10. Now the final ability is definitely the best save for last. Airstrike. Now this ability surpasses anything that I had anticipated. The verticality of it really surprised me. The way it charges up like you're Superman about to take off, you jump high enough it wouldn't surprise me, honestly. What do you think leg day looks like for this guy? It's a nice reposition to get you out of the melee fight. Could get you behind some cover, or possibly even used to get over a gap such as a cliff or a river. I think this, again, is another ability that's going to be easy to augment. You could add different damage or utility to the bombardment portion. I do wonder about the applicability of being able to choose where you land. Right now it looks like you jump a fixed distance. It could be very useful to choose where you want to go, even direction-wise. That being said, it being a fixed distance does provide some counterplay for enemy players, though maybe too much. Time will have to tell. And that's it. Unfortunately, that was the extent of what they showed us for the Ranger. Far from the extensive class reveal that I was hoping it'd be. I am thoroughly disappointed. Not because I didn't like what they showed, but because they didn't really show enough of it. I know it's a balance that Steven and his team have to make to show enough information to keep people excited, but not show too much if it's not ready, and cause concern where there shouldn't be any. Where I struggle is that I don't know if we don't get as much information as I want just because it's not there yet, and our hopes of an Alpha 2 in 2023 is slipping away from us, or if Steven is just trying to keep some of the mystery about the features for the players to explore for themselves. I, for one, obviously hope it's the latter. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on the Ranger combat and everything that they revealed to us. Leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. It really does help the channel out, and I'll see you next time.